Welcome, parents, to the Impactful Parenting Inspire and Learn series, where real parents come on and tell their real stories of inspiration and learning. Because a wise man learns from his mistakes, but a wiser man learns from other people's mistakes. So let's learn today from our guest speaker, Keisha Tower. And Keisha is here to talk to us about the struggles that she had with postpartum depression and anxiety after having her 3 children. And she wants to normalize this conversation so people out there know that they are not alone in their struggles. So thank you for being on The Impactful Parent today, Keisha.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to go ahead and just dive in and get started. I want to hear your story, which I know so many people listening right now will be able to relate to. And my first question to you is, prior to getting pregnant, did you ever have any signs or previous just episodes of depression or anxiety?
Yeah, so for me, I think I was a typical worrier my whole life. Maybe even took it to the extent of, worrying just a little bit more than the average person. Like, oh, like in school, what do I do if there's a fire drill? Or what do I do if there's a tornado drill? Stuff like that. I thought it was typical. I kind of thought everybody felt like that. And then, the older I got, I kind of, again, the same type of worries. Never thought it was anxiety. Never had anyone tell me it was anxiety. Definitely wasn't depressed at all. Never felt sad or lonely or, the dark hole feeling, anything like that. Um, so yeah, it totally caught me off guard. And I think that's kind of what, knocked me back 10 steps, just because I had never anticipated feeling the way I did when I had my kids, especially around the same time I had several friends that had kids and they were not feeling like me. They were living their, what I like to call like normal, loving, connecting, bonding relationship. And I wasn't having that, which kind of drove the stake further that I was doing something wrong or there was something wrong with me in general. So yeah, that's kind of where all that started.
Oh, what a horrible feeling. And I'm sure that so many people were in the same, who's listening right now, have had the same kind of experience. I have to imagine that, when you get pregnant, you have these expectations, like it's going to go like this, and you're so excited. And then this baby comes and you want to be so into it. And then this hits.
Yeah.
And it is something that just has to be put out there. The struggle is real. Can you tell me, at what point during your postpartum journey did you realize that you needed help?
Yeah. And even kind of backing up a little bit too, my very first pregnancy that I had, it actually resulted in a miscarriage. So from there, from that very first pregnancy, that kind of set the tone. That like really set the tone. Every pregnancy after that, I thought something was going to go wrong. Even literally up until the time I delivered, I was like, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. This happened before. Something's going to happen. So it kind of triggered me when you said like, oh, you must be so happy when you were pregnant. Like I wasn't. I totally did not enjoy pregnancy at all. And for a long time, I felt really bad for feeling like that. But at the same time, I know deep down it was because I was so scared that something was going to happen. And I never felt connected to any pregnancy because I felt the moment that I would connect, something would happen. So I was just constantly living in this fear and anticipation because of that first pregnancy. So I've been pregnant 6 times, and every other time I had a miscarriage. So it was miscarriage, pregnant, miscarriage, pregnant, miscarriage, pregnant, and with that history, I was just kind of always waiting for the worst to happen. So the first miscarriage kind of did it to me. And so then my second pregnancy, when I had my first successful, full-term baby, I was like ready. It's like, okay, went through this miscarriage. Now I get to experience this what everyone, I guess, talks about, having the happy baby and being a mother for the first time. And it was the complete opposite. It was so opposite of what I had anticipated. Um, Lots of factors in my case probably went into it. So she had colic, so she cried nonstop for 4 months, um, literally from the moment she woke up till the moment she went to bed. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. Um, and I remember I was just telling a friend this the other day. Just I remember telling myself, if I take a shower and I wash my hair every single day, I won't get this. Like, it's like inside of me something knew that it was ramping up, like something was about to happen. Um, don't get me wrong, showers are nice, but they don't prevent postpartum depression and anxiety. Um, I was in denial for a very long time because I hadn't felt that I had signs or a history of anxiety and depression. Um, so I was like, no, not me. Like, this can't be happening to me. This can't be me. It wasn't until she was 6 months old that I decided to get help. So there was a breaking point for me. Um, if you ever had kids before, which I'm assuming the majority of your audience does, 6 months is like no sleep. You're running on fumes, and 6 months is kind of that point where they kind of start to maybe sleep a little bit, but then it just added up. Like, it was like everything kind of piled on and packed on. We were at a restaurant one night with some friends. This is 2015. And we had prearranged, my husband and I, because my child was finally sleeping. So I was like, I will leave. Like, she cried for 4 months straight. I will leave. You can stay here with friends. When it came time to leave, and she made it very aware, she was ready to leave. She's 6 months old. She's ready for bed. I was not ready to leave. And I literally blacked out after that from anger. And I had never done that before either. Ever. It was really scary. I just remember my husband was like, why are you so angry? And I was literally just like, I hate you. I don't like you for staying. Get away from me. Like, I want to kill you right now. Like, literally didn't want to kill him, but that's the ragey thoughts that were going through me. And I was just like, what in the world is going on with me? Like, this is not okay. And all my friends had seen the way I act, so it was like embarrassing. And they had all my friends had also at that point kind of voiced some feelings, like, you're not acting yourself. It's like, I literally shut myself out from the world. I was so scared to leave the house. And that one time I left the house, I wasn't ready to leave, because I was actually enjoying myself. And that very night, so after I calmed down in the truck, I had my daughter, we calmed down, put her to bed. I opened my laptop up and I Googled a therapist. Just because I knew, like, that was kind of my breaking point from, like, the blackout, ragey, like, that was so unlike me. And I started therapy that day. And 6 years later, I'm still doing therapy. I haven't stopped. So yeah, I mean, that's, again, I hate that it took the breaking point, definitely, because I was in denial for so long, because I just knew I didn't have, there's no way that I could have had postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. It just wasn't me, and that couldn't have been further from the truth. Your whole life changes when you can read all the books and do all the things, but until they literally place that child in your arms and you're no longer first and you have to care for another. I mean, there's just nothing like it. There's nothing like your first. And, I wish the circumstances had been different for her and I, because I think now, like, she's a very anxious person. So I think she absorbed a lot of my anxiety in that newborn phase. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'm getting help. I've gotten help, continued help, Um, but yeah, again, I hated that I waited for that breaking point. I wish that I had kind of been cognizant enough to get the help sooner.
I'm so happy that you got the help, though. So happy for that. And great step. I would like to think that your story is not original in that I feel like a lot of people have to hit a breaking point in order to have that epiphany or get the help that they need or whatever it is that shifts in their life.
Yeah.
Um, and it is too bad that it takes that sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's people listening who are like, yes, yes, me too. And if you are listening to this and you've had your breaking point, I encourage you to just put those in the comments. Let's make this aware to others so that they know that they're not alone in this struggle. So that hopefully, if there's a newer mom out there listening to this right now, they don't need to wait for that breaking point to happen. But it is really it's just such a powerful story that you have. And I can completely understand how the miscarriages played
Yeah.
a huge part in the anxiety of it all. That I can relate to. I've had my own miscarriages myself. And it does bring so much angst and just worry to a pregnancy.
Yeah.
And I got to think that that's just a compounding on top of
Oh, yeah.
all the other things that are happening inside your body, all the hormonal changes and all the other things. It's just like there's so much going on. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous, actually.
Yeah.
Did you have postpartum depression or this kind of anxiety with every pregnancy that you have? Because you have you have 3 children and you've been pregnant 6 times. Is it with every time that this happened?
Yeah, even so I've had one of my pregnancies was a later miscarriage, like later in the first trimester, it was past the 8-10 weeks, but it wasn't quite second trimester yet. I was even talking with my therapist and my doctor at the time, and I couldn't even bring myself to say that I was experiencing postpartum depression and anxiety because I didn't have a baby to hold in my arms. And they were like, "Okay, but did you lose a child?" And I'm like, "Yes, I did." And they're like, "Okay, then you are going through the same thing you did, except you don't have a child in your arms. Like it's the exact same thing." Um, but to expound upon that too, with the successful pregnancies that I also had postpartum depression and anxiety with the other 2 as well. It was nowhere near to the magnitude of the first one. And I contribute that to having it so bad with my first child. I knew I was predisposed to having it again. So I was very aware. And plus, I had been in therapy now. So it's, I'm aware of my emotions, I'm aware of things happening around me. I knew I picked up on the signs very quickly. And for me personally, this might not be the same for everyone. But for me personally, how I knew it was coming on is when I did not want to leave the house. I didn't want to leave the house because everything felt too hard. It was so much easier. If you have newborns, you have 85 bags you have to carry for, everything.
Oh, yes.
And every parent does that. Like, I get that. Every parent does, and it wasn't just me, but in the moment, and for me, everything just felt like it just felt so much easier to stay at home. It felt so much easier to stay at home. I didn't have to go anywhere. I didn't have to pack up all these things. Again, anxiety going. What if she cries out in public? Oh God, like what would happen? She would cry in public. But for me, it was like, oh God, like what am I going to do if she cries in public? I mean, my brain just took it a step further, and I was just like, I thought, God, these people are going to think I'm a terrible mother if my child cries in public, Again, it may seem silly to some, but it's the truth, and it's the way I felt. It's like, oh God, what if I forget the diaper bag? And I had the diaper bag on me, and it's like, do I need another one? Like, I mean, literally, these are the thoughts that would go through my head just because I was so worried and anxious, and literal worst case scenarios. What if we're driving in my truck and I get in a wreck? Like, I mean, again, I could go on forever with the what ifs. So that was the anxious part of it. But then again, the depression part of it was because I'm holding myself in my house, and because I'm not leaving my house, and because I have these spiraling thoughts, I start to feel so lonely. And I was also in a stage of, I wouldn't have listened to anything my friends had to say anyway. I was just very defensive. I was extremely defensive. I didn't want to listen to anybody. Those were the signs again for me. So as soon as, and I'm still in therapy through all of this. So once I felt myself being defensive, not wanting to leave the house, having the spiraling anxious thoughts, which again, my therapist was aware anyway. I'm like, okay, this is happening. Like, let's discuss. Or, talking with my husband too. I remember going up to him in my second and third successful pregnancies, and I'm like, I'm feeling like I did with our first. Like, we need to do something. Let's put a plan in place. Let's talk about this. So it just kind of, from there, it just felt better. So, just being able to identify the signs and recognize the signs, and just understand that it's okay to feel like that. It's normal.
I love that you're bringing up the signs, because a lot of the audience right now already have some children and maybe not have experienced postpartum or anxiety with their first pregnancy, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to get pregnant again, have multiple children, and then it could happen. And so it's so great. Like, this series is about learning from others. And I love that we're learning from you. We're learning how to identify these signs. And one other question I have about the signs is, what kind of things did your friends say to you? I know you didn't want to hear it because you weren't in that place.
Yeah.
But what did they say that was the red flag to them that maybe others can hear that right now?
Yeah. So I very specifically remember a couple of friends. One was very blunt with me, which I appreciate.
I said those are usually pretty good friends.
And at the time, she probably could have worded it better, but she was like, you're being a little crazy right now, and this is not you. And even when we talk about it afterwards, she's like, you were definitely crazy during this point in time in your life. And I'm not, again, not my words, like, I take crazy with a grain of salt, but it's just not in your right mind. Like, that was the point she was trying to make. Like, you were not in your right mind. Like, you were not making normal Keisha decisions that you normally would have made. And, I had a couple other friends that they would, as soon as I would start, because they knew too, like, they knew how bad I had it with the first, with the second and third, whenever I started saying, like, no, I'm not going to do this. This is too much. I can't do this. They would then mirror it back at me and say, okay, but this is what happened with your first. And when you start doing this, you understand that you're going down a dark hole if you start staying in your house and not doing things. Like, I literally took it to the point of, I would not even walk outside of my doors. I have a beautiful wraparound porch, and I would not walk outside my doors. That's how deep I took it. And same way with friends and with husband, he would also say, should probably go outside and get some sunlight, something like that. And I would be very hesitant, and no, I can't do that. Like, I can't right now. And okay, but what's it going to hurt if you do? What's it going to hurt? Obviously, it would hurt nothing. It would have made everything better probably if I would have got some vitamin D and fresh air, But whenever I put up the wall, and they felt it, that's when they knew, everyone around me knew that something was wrong, is when I put the wall up and I had it built so high that nobody could climb over it.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your husband in this? I'm sure it had to be very, very difficult for him. And you did talk about how at one point you were just so raging angry with him. What what can you say to his side of this? If we do have dads that listen to the impactful parent, what kind of tips would you give our dads out there listening, saying that are trying to support their their wives, but their wives are in this bad space? What would you say to those people?
First off, I have to give my husband all the kudos in the world, because not only, if you take it back to the first, was he was becoming a dad for the first time, and then he was being introduced to a wife he no longer knew, because I was not the same person. We're supposed to change, right? Like, we're supposed to change. We go from, husband and wife to mom and dad. Like, I can't even explain how much that change was, and I was not expecting it. I just figured I'd be the same old person, and I wasn't. I just wasn't. But I feel for him, honestly, in this whole situation, because he has been nothing but supportive, nothing less. I mean, it has done a damage to our marriage. Having kids has, it's been very hurtful, just because our kids are very close together, and we didn't make time for ourselves. It all just kind of rolled into, bad stuff happening, not communicating, things like that. With that said, though, like I said, he was becoming a new dad, and then he was with me, and he didn't know me anymore, because I was dealing with this anxiety and depression that I didn't know how to deal with. He definitely didn't know how to deal with it. When I'm going through it, I have no idea how to tell him how to help me. No idea. I just go blank. One day I might need A, the next day I might need B, and it could be totally different from each other. What I would say to dads, if you have a spouse going through this, hang in there, because it's worth it in the end. I think it's worth it. There are many times where my husband and we were just ready to call it quits, because everything just felt so hard. Everything just felt too hard. And I get it. Like, we're not the only people to ever feel like that, it's so worth it to hang in there. Like, help her in the middle of the night, give her what if she's feeding, if she's, take the baby away for like 10 minutes. And then when she's calmed down, give the baby back, let her have time to herself. You all make time for yourself. I could go on forever, but my biggest piece is just hang in there, because I think we as mothers, we understand that you are becoming a dad that you've never been before, or even if you have been before, if it's for multiple times, you're becoming a dad again. But for us too, like, we're going through a change too. Like you just previously said, there's so much going on hormonally and everything like that as well. A lot of the times we're probably not in our right mind from hormones and lack of sleep and stuff like that. But, sometimes she may just need you to sit by her. There was one time I asked my husband, I was just like, sit by me. Don't talk to me. Don't touch me. Just sit by me. And that's all I needed in that moment. And then there are other times where I'm just like, please take the baby. Give me 15 minutes to like recollect myself, and then I will come out a better person. And sometimes that's all it needs. Sometimes it literally might be a day away. And then, I've had that before, and then I come back a new person. I would just say, be flexible, because we are trying to figure it out as well. Like, we don't exactly know what we need either at all times. And so it's hard to communicate that, especially if we don't know. So just be flexible and be there and hang in there. And I promise it'll be so much worth it in the long run.
I love that. I really love that advice. This conversation is so inspiring to me, and I'm sure it's inspiring to others listening, but it's heavy. It feels like a heavy blanket. I'm very empathic with people. Even through this video, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could just feel the heavy on you. But I don't want to end this heavy. I'd like to know, I mean, you're here speaking to this audience for a reason. I know you want to like get this message out there, and I want to help you do that. So just to kind of help others in a more lighter note, like, what would you say to moms out there who are experiencing this right now or might be pregnant and could be experiencing this soon. And to that same respect, like if there's anything else you want to add with, I wish I would have done this or a tip for that, please just go ahead and talk freely.
Yeah. One thing that I wish I would have done a lot sooner was get into therapy. Like, I think a lot of people, I even talk a lot just about trauma and how trauma shows up in your parenting, and how if you think you had a normal childhood, and you may have, there are little pieces that tend to come up, and it's like, oh, and it shows up in your parenting very much so. But through therapy, I have become a very emotionally aware person, which helps me. It helps my husband. It helps my kids, so it's, um, that's one thing I wish I'd definitely done. I wish I'd gotten therapy sooner. I wish someone was talking about this and say, hey, if you want to have kids one day, maybe you should kind of deal with your stuff before you have kids, so that, because going through it at the same time, it's kind of, it's hard and difficult to deal with your stuff and have kids at the same time. But I will say now, after 6 years of therapy and 1 year of very intense EMDR therapy, so it's like reprogramming therapy, I am a much happier and better person in general. We have my husband and I have arguments, my kids and I have arguments, but we're all here and we're all happy, and it does get better. If you're pregnant and you're scared that you may go through this, I would say set up your first line of defense, right after. Seek out, it doesn't have to be therapy. I talk highly of therapy because I like it. But you just have a support person, have someone where if you were already anticipating that something may happen, have a support person. So you can call them any time of day or night, like, hey, I'm going through this. Can you talk through this with me, type of thing. And also know that it is only temporary. It may be it's not something that may go away after a week. It's my postpartum I didn't acknowledge my postpartum until I was 6 months. So, from 0 to 6 months, I was going through it and I was like, no, this isn't happening. I just wasn't acknowledging it. So just know that if something happens at 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, like, it could be postpartum, and it's totally valid. But again, it's still, even with that said, I understand that feels like a long time, but it is so only temporary. My kids are 6, 4, and almost 2 now. And how they say you blink and the years are gone, and it couldn't be more true. And I get that if you are in it right now, it feels, the days feel like weeks and the weeks feel like months. I get it. I have been there. We've all been there. I get it. Especially if you're postpartum in the early months right now, days, months, weeks, just know that it does get better. And I know that seems so cliche to say, but there's nothing else that I can think to say right now, because as I'm sitting here reflecting on my 2-year-old, I feel like yesterday I just had her. And we had so many issues with sleep and stuff. And don't tell my husband, but if I could have another baby now, I would. Like, I thought I would never say that, but it's just, it is so temporary. It is so temporary. And set up that first line of defense if you can. And anyway, again, it most certainly does not have to be a therapist. It could be a trusted friend or anything like that. I had wished that I had done that too, for sure. So it does get better. Everything gets better. Your kids get older and then they don't need you anymore. So
thank you so much for all of this. It's so inspiring and it's perfect. I love the story because we're going to learn so much and it's so relatable. And I'm hoping that you're helping out a ton of mamas out there right now, and dads too, for that matter. If somebody out there has resonated with your story and they would like just to see you more or hear from you more, how would they do that?
Sure. So I actually have my own podcast. It's called the Kentucky Mama Podcast. I release a new episode every Monday. You can also just check out my website, thekentuckymama.com. It has basically everywhere you can find me there. So on Facebook at The Kentucky Mama, Instagram is Keisha Nicole T, But again, it's all on my website. If you go to my website, everything is linked there. So
if you have an inspiring story and want to share your story with the audience so that others can learn from you, please go to the Impactful Parent website at theimpactfulparent.com and sign up, because I want to learn from you too. But until then, you got this, parents. We're just here to help.